I've owned my 2021 Porsche 718 Spyder for 4 years now, but I've been a Porsche enthusiast my whole life. In this video, I'll take you along for a ride and share my experiences with my car, including the good, the bad, and the two things that I absolutely hate about this car. I'll share with you my ownership costs, including what I paid for the car when I originally purchased it. And to tell you the truth, those costs still surprise me, even though this is not my first Porsche. So if you're thinking about buying one of these gorgeous Porsche Spyders, I definitely suggest you watch this video first. Now keep in mind that this car is definitely not for everyone. If you're looking for a luxurious and comfortable Porsche, you need to look somewhere else. I know of at least one couple that didn't realize the shortcomings of this vehicle, bought one, and then almost traded it in immediately for a Porsche Boxster GTS, just because of the compromises. Some say the Porsche Spyder is just too expensive, but when I share my ownership experience with you and the costs that I've incurred over the last 4 years, you'll see that, you know what, it's really a bargain. Oh, I guess they're trimming back the trees from being on the hydro lines. Also, you need to keep in mind that this is the first Spyder that was built by the Porsche Motorsports division, who also build the Porsche GT2, GT3, and GT4 sports cars. In fact, literally it's a Porsche GT4 convertible, and underneath they are identical. So you can fine-tune the suspension just like you can on a GT4. You can adjust the camber, the toe-in, and you can even adjust the anti-sway bars. But the performance, oh man, it's like nothing I'd ever experienced before. The acceleration, the handling, the braking, this Spyder is just so incredibly impressive. The sound and performance of that 414 horsepower, 4-liter, normally aspirated 6-cylinder flat six is just amazing. You know, especially as you head up to that 8,000 RPM red line, it's just phenomenal. Sure, it does have a top speed of 187 miles an hour, 0-60 time of 4.1 seconds. You know, that's not something we'll be demonstrating here today, but it's amazing the performance that this car has. But it's a lot more performance with that PDK transmission, which is one of the main reasons why I opted for that PDK transmission. It does have 6 pistons on front, 4 piston on the back, disc brakes, but just keep an eye on those brakes, because once those brakes start to get a little bit worn, well, we'll talk about that a little bit later. I've had some incredible moments in this 718 Spyder. Not that long ago, we drove it down to Pennsylvania and down through New York State, and just enjoyed winding it down through those mountain roads. And how it encouraged me to reel in that scenery was just truly unforgettable. And I always remember too, the very first time I took this car to a track day. Wow, what a performer. And when you let her rip down the straight and you take it up to that 8,000 RPM red line as you're accelerating on the track, man, that again, truly unforgettable. The car just felt so responsive and so sure-footed, and like I say, that sound is just so intoxicating. I was shocked at how quickly I was able to take the car right to definitely my limit on that track. It's just such a shallow learning curve when you're on the track with a PDK transmission car. Yeah, it was an incredible rush, that's for sure, but it really showed me what this Spyder was capable of. When driving my Spyder, one of the most surprising things has been how often I find myself taking the long way home, turning off that 4-lane highway and heading onto those 2-lane twisty alternatives. It's just so much fun to drive that I find excuses to get behind the wheel and just go. And the looks this car gets from other drivers, priceless. Now, I'd been on a waiting list for over 3 years to get this car, but it was definitely worth the wait. Since I live in Canada, most of you are in the United States, I converted all the dollar values that I'm talking about in this video to US dollars, so you can definitely relate. I paid with tax $103,000, and that was before trading in my 2008 Boxster S. Now, that was a car I loved and owned since it was new, and again, it was a factory order, just like this one. But because I wanted a Porsche GT car and I wanted a faster car, and definitely with that PDK transmission, well, this GT car was the best choice. The factory order route has always worked out best for me because I tend to keep my cars for a long time and I want to make sure I get exactly what I want. The PDK versus manual transmission was a huge decision for me. I love manual transmission cars, I love to heel and toe, and I love to drive them. But because these cars had such a high second gear, that I would find that just driving it around like I am here right now, I'd be doing so little switching up of the gears between second and third gear, because second gear is so high, you can hit 85 miles per hour in second gear in these cars. So it just made sense to go with the PDK. The gearing is much lower, so it shifts up more often. And like I say, it's faster with PDK and it's easy to drive on the track. And this car just loves track days. But when not on track, all you do is drop the top and enjoy the scenery like we're doing today. Nice little town here of Honey Harbor. Now, when I ordered this car, I kept the options to a bare minimum because like I said, I didn't want to have the extra weight and the extra stuff going on. I wasn't looking for a luxurious Porsche. I was just looking for a fun car to drive on Sunday mornings and take to track days. And that's exactly what I got. So because I like bright colors, my wife suggested Miami blue, and I think this car just looks absolutely gorgeous in Miami blue. We went with the 18-way power seats because I needed lumbar support, and I also wanted the seats heated because it gets cold up here. And even today, it's, 58 degrees outside, and I've got the heated seats on because I got the top down. Other than that, the car is pretty basic. I believe this car is breathtakingly beautiful, especially with those gorgeous speedster humps at the back. And because of the low stance, the vents at the front of the hood like all GT cars have, and that blackout trim, I believe this car looks absolutely gorgeous. But I didn't go with black wheels. So many people go with black wheels, but I just find the car just looks so dour. With the silver wheels, I think it just looks so much better. And 5 or 10 or 15 years from now, I'll be super happy that I never went with those black wheels because they'll be totally out of style anyway. And you know what? This Spyder looks great, even with the top up. And the interior, like I say, is a pretty basic spec. I kept everything in black. I made sure there wasn't going to be any body color trim showing, but I basically covered everything with leather. Now, I also went with the smooth leather steering wheel, which I know is sacrilege in a GT car, but I've just seen far too many Alcantara covered steering wheels that just look so dirty and so motley so quickly. And a lot of GT car owners I've noticed that have the Alcantara steering wheel wear gloves. And there's no way I'm going to be wearing gloves in this car in the summertime with the top down. That just isn't going to happen. But I have to admit, I do like the Alcantara on the seats, in the inserts in the middle, and because I do believe they provide more grip when you're on the track. You don't slide around as much. But long term, I think that Alcantara is definitely going to wear a lot more quickly than smooth leather would have, but I guess that's the compromise. And it just loves these twisty 2-lane highways. Now, this is not my daily driver, and I don't drive it in the winter time, but I have accumulated over 17,000 miles in the 4 years that I've owned it. I have taken longer trips of over 500 miles on, mixed highways in terms of interstate and 2-lane twisties. Now, when used for track days, that involves me packing a whole bunch of stuff into this car, and I definitely appreciate having the 2 trunks. Makes a big difference. This is what I take on a track day weekend for the 2 of us, and as you can see, I have no trouble stowing it with the 2 trunks. There's decent space available between the 2 trunks, as long as you don't take anything longer than a full-size umbrella. Although this car is reasonably comfortable for a sports car, whenever you get a Porsche GT car, there definitely will be compromises. Although I have the stock exhaust, it's loud on startup and when at full acceleration. But it does sound better when driving, especially with the top down, with the sport exhaust turned on. Oh, and with this very thin convertible top, with the top up, you can actually hear cars in your blind spot on the interstate, even if you don't actually see them. Because The blind spots, yeah, they're kind of tough in this car. There's no question about that. Although I have found that if you adjust the outside mirrors as far out as possible and keep the seat fairly high, it definitely helps. No, this is not a great car choice as a daily driver or even as a highway cruiser, that's for sure. The lack of space, the stiff ride, limited rearward visibility, and the relatively loud noise make it far better suited for, like I say, those spirited Sunday or Saturday morning drives and for fun outings. Which, to be honest, is perfect for me. Now, the first time you push it beyond 4,000 RPM on a twisty road, you'll definitely be hooked. Its exhaust shriek and that amazing grip through all the corners will leave you totally hooked. The handling is absolutely amazing. Keep in mind that the engine and the suspension in this Spyder is exactly the same as the GT4, so the performance will be exactly the same too, both on the track and on the street. But of course, with the Spyder, you can drop the top, enjoy the scenery, and that amazing engine sound all that much more. Okay, sure, opening and closing the roof is always a major point of discussion and consideration when you're thinking about investing in a Porsche Spyder. But to tell you the truth, once you actually get it, it's not such a big deal. Typically, you drop the top and you're driving it with the top down for a long period of time, and then when you park it, you put the top back up. So yeah, it takes more work than it would be in a Boxster or something like that, because it isn't a fully electric top. It is a manual top. But as you can see, it doesn't take me long to drop the top or to put it back up. It's a fairly simple process. Once you've done it a few times, you don't even think about it anymore. And sure, there's some specific things that I don't like about the car, definitely when it's driven as a daily. How noisy it is on the highway with the top up makes it not the best choice for long distance travel, and those weird suspension noises you hear when driving slowly need to be explained to every passenger you get in the car. And of course the top, well, it is somewhat inconvenient. Although experienced Porsche GT car owners will tell you, if the suspension in your GT car isn't making weird noises, there's definitely something wrong. I haven't done very many modifications to the car, just replaced the stock mirror on the passenger side with one that gives a little bit more of an outward view, and I've replaced the wind blocker here. The one that comes with it is more of kind of like a screen, and I found it just wasn't clear enough that so I replaced it with this one. I'm not sure if it's glass or plexiglass, so it's a lot clearer and it's easier to see out of when looking back. And believe me, anything that will help your rearward visibility when you're backing up this car is definitely appreciated. I've also added a shield on the underside of the hood to protect it from any damage when it's closed, so we don't get any dents poking up. Pretty standard for cars like this. And I have gone with a more aggressive wheel alignment, that's for sure. Now, the tires on this car have been replaced a couple of times already, and I always prefer to go with Michelin Pilot Sport 4S. I prefer them over the Cup 2s that this car originally came with. I just find that the Cup 2s, if it's rainy or cold or wet or all of those, it's a real handful with Cup 2s. You definitely don't get the grip that you do with this car. Sure, their Cup 2s are better than the Pilot Sport 4S's on dry pavement, but not that much better. I've also replaced the brake pads front and rear. And by the way, according to Consumer Reports, they rate the Porsche 718 series as 85 out of 100, which is super, super high in terms of reliability. That's actually higher than most Lexus. And I have to admit, in terms of my experience with this car so far, I agree totally. I've had no items that needed to be replaced or repaired under warranty whatsoever. But the service costs are very high. Sure, the base radio is terrible, but let's face it, you're not going to hear it anyway, no matter how good of a radio you have in this car. It's just too noisy. But there are a couple of things that I just hate. So one of them is the power seats. So we have the power seats in this car. They work incredibly well. I'm super pleased. But there's no buttons to memorize the settings. What a pain that is. Now, in my case, 90% of the time it's me that drives this car. My wife drives it very rarely, so she doesn't adjust the seats all that much. But it definitely is a drawback, that's for sure. The other thing that I absolutely hate is last fall I needed new brake pads for this car. We went to my service provider. He went to order them. There was none available in the whole country. So I had to wait 3 weeks till they got shipped over from Germany, and I actually ended up missing a track day because of that. This spring, I needed the other set of brake pads. Well, guess what? They weren't available either. And again, we had to wait 3 weeks. Now that particular time, I ordered them in advance to make sure that when I did need them, we had them in stock and we had them on hand. And so I didn't miss any more track days. But come on, Porsche, like wear items like that should definitely be a stock item and should be in stock all the time. In terms of my costs over the last 4 years, I paid $103,000 for the car initially, and there's been virtually no depreciation, probably because these cars are no longer available, but still very much in demand. Now, these costs are what the Porsche dealership charges, but you could save 40% of the labor by having the work done on an independent Porsche specialist. Insurance has been $525 per year. A minor service is required every year, assuming you drive 9,000 miles or less at $488. A medium service is required every 2 years, or 18,000 miles at $1,188. They want the spark plugs replaced every 27,000 miles or 4 years, or twice that often if you track your car, which will add another massive $1,200 to your service. Oh yes, let's not forget that the car uses premium gas only, and I average about 18 miles per gallon. So my total cost of ownership for the 4 years is just under $18,200, or about $1.07 per mile, which in my book makes it a steal. But keep in mind that if the depreciation was more what you'd expect, that cost per mile could easily be $3 or $4 per mile. I just love my Porsche Spyder, and it's perfect for me. But if you're looking for something more luxurious, click here for my review of the 2024 Porsche Carrera Cabriolet I reviewed in Germany, and I'll see you there.